Hey guys, welcome back to more Malicious Compliance Reddit stories. In today's Ripestories video, my power-tripping boss tried to force me to work during my first vacation in 2 years. He thought he had me cornered, but he accidentally handed me the perfect loophole. I used his own words to set a trap that you will not believe the absolute chaos he returned to. Let's dive right into the video. And the first one is titled, "Reconsider working here if I want to take a honeymoon? Okay," posted on r/MaliciousCompliance. So for some context, I had a manager who hated reading emails and would miss important issues and meetings because of it. I even suggested text-to-speech to make it less unpleasant for him, but he told me off. He spent a lot of time playing golf with clients and was mostly inaccessible. It actually got to the point where most of the team CC'd me. I was next on the totem pole, so I could grant approvals for stuff like expense reports and help out on projects my manager was supposed to work on. When I was getting married, I requested 3 weeks off for my honeymoon. Everyone knew I was getting married. Manager even congratulated me on the engagement when it happened. So I had 5 weeks vacation accumulated and didn't think it would be a big deal, especially since I was requesting it nearly 8 weeks in advance. But then a vacation request denied email comes in from our time-off system. I emailed the manager following up, left voicemails, and after a week, he finally replied to an email saying, "Look, we need dedicated people. If you think you can take 3 weeks off for a vacation, you need to reconsider your position here." Keep in mind, guys, my request stated, "Vacation request for honeymoon." I replied with, "No consideration needed. My last day will be date in 3 weeks. Let me know about transitioning duties." I forwarded this to HR, CCing the manager, and HR sets up my exit interview, but HR tells my manager to set up transition for my responsibilities. During my notice period, I even replied all to this email twice asking about transition plans since I didn't get any transition plan. I tell my team, they ask manager what to do with my duties and manager says he'll think about it but doesn't do anything nor email anything out. 4 weeks later, I get a call from my old boss. "Are you planning on coming in this week?" "Why would I? Because you work for me?" "Not as of last week. Stop messing around, get your ass in the office. I told you my last day when you denied my vacation request." How about giving proper notice and transitions? HR asked you to develop a transition plan and to attend my exit interview. It's not my fault that you don't read all your emails. I hang up and block his number but screenshot the call log and send it to the HR contact with an innocent, "Should I be worried?" Old manager thinks I still work for him? Fallout, things went from bad to worse for my old manager. Apparently I was doing most of his managerial duties, so he actually had to try and get stuff done himself now, and he also has gotten into some legal issues. Those client golf outings. He played golf but not with clients, and that made his termination with cause, so no severance for him. I ended up at a competitor with a nice bump in pay. I wanted to start after my honeymoon, but the new company really wanted my help on a pitch. I joined for several weeks, reworking like a third of the pitch, and then went on my honeymoon for 3 weeks. They paid me for the entire time off. That garnered a lot of goodwill from both me and my wife. By the way, I only left the company because wife and I moved cross-country and they didn't have remote positions back then. ETA, thank you for the awards. I don't have all the details, but I know old manager had to hire lawyers to deal with legal issues related to his dismissal and the expenses. Clarification, this happened in the late 2000s. Mrs. and I are still married. And the next one is a fantastic malicious compliance story and also the title story, and it is titled, "Unless you're in the middle of nowhere, you have to work during vacation. Your salary." I work for a small company in the trades as head of the IT department, aka the only IT person, and truthfully, the gig is pretty great. Good pay, benefits, and I can come in and go as I please within reason. The 2 people I have to answer to are the VP and CEO, and as is par for the course, they know dick all about anything to do with technology and generally leave me be as I'm good at my job and everything runs smoothly. Being a small company, a lot of us don't take vacations due to A, building the company, and B, not having replacements for the time we are gone. But after 2 years vacationless, we're in the US, my wife convinces me to use the time I've been given to decompress and take a small 1-week getaway. I talk to VP and he gives me the thumbs up to take the time barring I get everything in order and do some minor teaching to other staff in case of an emergency. Cool. Easy, right? Enter the FOD, aka Field Operations Director, is a man who is an attack dog for the VP for no reason, as the VP is nothing but polite and reasonable. FOD loves giving everyone a hard time, adding steps to tasks to make himself look like he is part of the process, reminding everyone how much of a boss he is to the rest of us in management, and calling me a nerd any chance he gets. Fair to say, I dislike FOD immensely. After making my rounds with other staff, it is FOD's time to do some scary computer-related learning. FOD refuses to look weak under any circumstances and gets very aggressive when learning new things because I'm the boss, I already know. In the midst of learning, it dawns on him to ask why he has to learn this stuff anyway. I'm the nerd apparently, and it's my job to do this. I clue him in on the week I'm taking off, and this stuff is just precautionary. This worries FOD as he will have to retain information, answer questions and do some minor troubleshooting. The conversation went like this, and I wish I could tell you that this guy is not this much of a jerk, but he actually is. FOD is the boss and me is me. FOD, who approved your vacation? Me, VP did, as long as I could get you guys comfortable with some small maintenance. FOD, I only approve vacation time, I'm your boss. Side note, he does this so much that VP actually wrote out the hierarchy in chart form, and we all carry a digital copy with us to remind him who he's actually in charge of. Me, you are not, shows him the chart. FOD, well fine, but your salary, so you have to work during your vacation. You'll bring your laptop and work phone with you. Me, when you vacation, you make it very clear that you're unreachable and cannot be bothered, even if it is an emergency. That is because I go to places without service, and unless you're going to the mountains, you gotta work. Your salary. Malicious compliance initiated. Me, so just to be clear, if I go to a place without service, I won't be expected to work, yeah? FOD, that's right, but you're a nerd. You don't do anything outdoorsy. Me, great, thanks for clearing that up. Fast forward 3 weeks later, and it's vacation time. All my ducks are in a row now, people are comfortable with me being gone for the week and are all encouraging me to just disconnect. A close coworker of mine knows of the conversation FOD and I had and asks what I plan to do about it, so I shared my easy but effective plan. Number 1, wife and I rented a cabin in the woods 2 hours from the nearest town and it does not have service. Number 2, set up automatic email replies that have all IT questions and concerns forwarded to FOD since he is the boss and he knows. Number 3, leave work phone on the charger in my office with ringer on, door locked, so he has to hear it, and voicemail changed to have FOD become IT for the week. Coworker loves the idea of flooding FOD with questions he cannot answer so much that he gets other coworkers in on it. Midway through the week I get a call from coworker with an update. FOD loses it. He cannot keep up with any requests for help and didn't bother to memorize even the simple tasks I showed him, so he does what any good boss does and puts in a request to take a vacation until I get back. Retreat is always an option. Nothing screams leader more than retreat. It is not weakness and failure if he's not there. My coworkers were able to manage and FOD got his 3-day vacation. Unfortunately, after the week off, I'm called to VP's office to catch up and get things back on track. VP obviously heard of the hardships that FOD faced in my absence and laughed at my malicious compliance surprisingly. VP struck a deal with me moving forward since it was made clear to him that no one else knew how to do my job. I can go on vacation wherever I would like, as long as I bring my laptop and phone and check it once a week. They will refund my vacation time for that day even if I only work for 5 minutes. I took that, but with the caveat of making FOD actually learn some of my duties just in case, and VP agreed. So now I do an hour of teaching a week to a very surly FOD. After all, he's the boss, he gotta know. And yeah guys, if you ask me about this story, I would say he made the rule, you simply followed the rule. That's just the whole story. He does not get to say, when I'm unreachable on vacation that is fine, but when you are unreachable on vacation, you are lazy and because you are salaried. If he wanted you available, that needed to come from your actual boss with clear expectations and compensation. Also, the fact that he immediately took vacation once he had to deal with the consequences tells everyone exactly what kind of a leader he is. He did not want responsibility, he simply wanted authority. And a user in the comments said, as a fellow solo IT person, I'm standing up and applauding you. People who don't work in tech truly don't understand the absolute audacity of non-technical managers. FOD wanted to play boss so badly, you gave him exactly what he asked for, which is the responsibility. FOD is obviously a massive power-tripping clown who has no business managing people, let alone trying to dictate vacation policies for departments he doesn't even oversee. He absolutely deserved to get knocked down a peg. Another Reddit comment said, "The corporate world is wild because you can be a director of operations making six figures and your entire professional downfall can be triggered by a simple password reset prompt. Man looked at a dual-factor authentication screen and decided his only option was to flee the state." And the next one is titled, "You have to use your vacation days posted on r/MaliciousCompliance." So recently I got a message from HR that I still had lots of holiday hours open, many of which would lapse as of July 1st as a matter of law. I was aware of this, but in the past I was always able to sell them for money. In the pandemic years I've hardly been away for mostly obvious reasons, and I'm getting like 32 days per annum. In other words, my vacation days had piled up and my current balance was a grand total of 390 hours, and that is excluding the new 32 days from 2023, so that is almost 10 weeks of holidays. Of these, I had to finish roughly 200 hours or 5 weeks before July 1st. Possible of course, but hardly ideal. Not for my employer, our customer, or for myself though, which is why I thought it would not be a problem to sell these hours for extra salary, as I'd done before, but I was quite wrong. HR told me to contact my manager who denied my request, and I explained to him exactly how many days I had still open. He would ask the CEO, but the CEO sent me a message about how they care about work-life balance and mental health, etc. For the record, I fully agree with this stance in principle, and frankly, I think the measly amount of holidays people in the US get is shameful, and the culture in which it's sort of not done to actually take your holidays I find outright toxic, and I'm glad I'm working in a country and for an employer where this situation is much better. But on the other one hand, one has to be practical. Pandemic was inflicted upon us all, and you cannot compensate for a lack of holidays taken in the past. We're taking copious amounts of holidays now, or in the near future. I love to travel and to socialize, but we could not go anywhere or do much, and I didn't see the point in taking holidays just to sit home more. In fact, my work provided me with some much needed structure during the lockdown times. And working from home meant that work was actually much more stress-free than it was in the office, so anyway, I brought up my situation and my reasoning, but it was still denied. I was just told it's good to take off some days and to go on holiday and so on. Again, I'm not opposed to this at all, but the scale of the problem seemed to just have escaped the manager and the CEO. I had and have already planned on traveling for 2 weeks to Sicily and Greece if anyone's interested, maybe also mainland Italy again, but after that I would still have 3 weeks which I would need to finish. I also have a long weekend planned to Iceland, but that only takes several paid holidays because of the weekend in the middle. It is then that I decided to start complying maliciously. So instead of trying to argue the point again with my CEO, I just planned a meeting with my line manager and the account manager of the customer I'm working for, and I told them that I wanted/needed to take every Friday off basically until July, or my days would lapse. I did not ask for permission because whilst paying out holidays is voluntarily, they need a very good excuse to deny leave requests, such as denying requests for key figures last minute when you're in the middle of a big project with deadlines, etc. But my request was not one of those, and obviously, they are not allowed to deny a payout and my leave request anyway. It would be super hypocritical too. So then, as a good and diligent employee, I wanted to make sure that our customer was aware of my sustained de facto reduction in capacity and wanted to discuss how we could best bring up this potentially touchy subject with them. After all, this structural reduction of capacity is different from a normal 2-week vacation or just some days off here and there, which is a pretty normal situation here even for contractors. Since they are a key account and I'm working for them as a senior DevOps/cloud engineer, I had anticipated to have a slightly awkward meeting with my manager and the account manager, maybe discussing the details, after which I already have expected they would U-turn at some point and decide to just pay out my vacation days after all. However, they exceeded expectations because when I entered the meeting, not a single word was spoken about my 2 denied requests for converting my holidays or about the framing I'd given this meeting about how and who wanted the honor of telling the big customer they would be losing 20% of my capacity and my employer would get to charge 20% less. Instead, the account manager just asked for how many days I still had open, which we were easily able to see in the system. He then proposed to just pay out all my open holidays from 2022 and before, so 10 weeks instead of the requested 5, so the backlog would be cleared and this situation would not occur again. Happy days, I've already received 2.5 months extra in salary and I still have all my 32 days from this year, so I have more than enough days for my holidays and for general R&R, so my work-life balance is really not in danger. And the next one is a brilliant malicious compliance story which is titled, "Don't like my new policy? Take it up to my dad, the CEO." Okay, let's dance. So this is not my story, but it's something that happened with my uncle during the early 2000s in South Korea. So my uncle was in an upper division head position for the company he was working for. He practically did most of the heavy lifting, so he was considered a valuable asset to the company. Everyone loved him, he had a wife and a then grade school son, aka my cousin, and he was paid well. What everyone loved him about most was that he tried to get along with everyone in the building, and I mean everyone, to the interns who just started, to the ladies at the front desk, and even all the way to the janitorial ladies. He always made sure to greet and chat with them, and always made them feel like they belonged. Trust me, this is important later. In came Mi Jin, a 25-year-old woman who was the new staff to join the company. Right off the bat, she was placed a few ranks above my uncle. He was rather annoyed that a younger person was giving him orders, but he had a family to take care of, so he decided to play along. At first, Mi Jin was not all that bad. She finished with a master in business and had plenty of internship experience in the US, so her skills and tactics helped the company quite a lot. My uncle began to like her until she dropped the bombshell of a policy. Apparently, she did not like the fact that the office workers were sharing the lunch cafeteria with the janitorial staff, so she made a new policy that janitors are not allowed lunch. She didn't mean they couldn't use the cafeteria, she was literally taking away their lunch break. She ordered my uncle to be the one to break the news, and my uncle did not like this, so he contested every time she was bringing this up. It finally got to the point where she revealed how she had the audacity to make such a policy. She revealed herself to be the daughter of the CEO of the company, and she said, as my uncle quoted, "If you don't like my new policy, then take it up to my dad, the CEO. I can ruin your life in an instant. This is just a taste of what's to come once I inherit the company and become the new CEO." This is when he had enough and began to meticulously plan her downfall. He first told the new policy janitor staff, and they were pissed. He assured them that he would set this straight and told them all they had to do was to make their voices heard, and gave them a few ideas. For the next few days, they went on a strike, letting everyone know how they are underpaid and starved while working there. My uncle admitted that the strike released all the built-up frustration, and the things that came out of the janitor crew were a bit more than he asked for. Some he was not even aware of, and shocked to hear about. Mistreatment that was going on behind his back, office folks leaving too much of a mess everywhere, underpay, physical pain, long hours, etc. Granted, few of them my uncle was aware of, but not to the extent the janitor team described as. Well, thankfully, the CEO got involved and put a lot of effort into negotiating and calming them down before the Korean version of the Department of Labor got involved with the lawsuit. He promised that they would be treated better and paid better. When the dust settled, he demanded to know who was the one that implemented the policy in the first place, and Mi Jin tried to coerce my uncle to take the fall, but he complied with what she said and took it to the CEO. He showed the new policy document signed by her, which even included the part about terminating anyone who spoke against the policy. Now the CEO was pissed and was originally planning to fire his own daughter. Apparently, he knew about her entitled nature for a very long time already, but never expected to impact so many people. Mi Jin begged to stay, and the CEO allowed her to do so, at the cost of demotion from her current role. Which role was she moved to, you may ask? Well, she was moved to the trainee position of the janitorial team, and the CEO even said to them, "Please don't go easy on her, be strict," on her first day, and she quit after a mere week of her new role. And the next one is titled, "Manager Calls Employees Bluffed Resignation." So I was working for a decent-sized family company that had internally promoted a manager from a different department to run a sizable branch for the company. He was warned about a particular employee who was known to cause trouble and was generally very contentious. I would just call her Karen. Karen worked in inside sales and was a notorious gossip who loved to spread rumors regardless of their validity, and she also made several younger male co-workers uncomfortable with her rather aggressive advances. This was mostly mitigated to how particular clothing fit a guy, but occasionally progressed to outright propositions for their mutual lunch breaks. At best, she was okay at her job, but generally made the workplace less than stellar. Karen also had a reputation for annually seeking raises from the prior manager by resigning. This was usually met with some form of concession just to placate her and keep her and her customer base on board. The new manager heard this story, and the passing of the info about Karen just so happened to coincide with a drop in sales, to a small degree the company's and to a larger hers. So to Karen's routine, she walked into the new inexperienced manager with the news that she simply was not going to be able to work there anymore. Unfazed, he immediately reacted with sincere regret that they wouldn't get to work with each other professionally, and Karen's confident look immediately shifted to fear. She floundered out a sentence about how she was not making what she needed to make, to which the manager totally agreed with her and again reiterated his best wishes in her next opportunity. He then stood up and said that he would need something formal written up for HR, but she could do it any time that day. Wasting no time, he immediately sent a glowing note to the staff about losing a true asset to the department and invited everyone to a going-away party in the kitchen that afternoon. At the party, Karen was a woman walking and interacting with guests at her own funeral. I imagine she was wondering how she would go home to her husband and explained that she had quit her job that morning. Fortunately for all, though, she was far too prideful to admit that it was all a tactic, and that was Karen's last day with the company. Afterwards, the branch ran fairly smoothly. It turns out she was indeed just mediocre, and her customers were more than happy to have a fresh wrap on their accounts. A few years later, the manager was again promoted and the pseudo-fired move was renamed to "got left to go pursue other opportunities." As in, Karen got left to go pursue other opportunities. And the next one is a funny malicious compliance story which is titled, "I stake my reputation on the fact that we don't need any extra staff." So for context, years ago, I was a union delegate for a hospital that underwent expansion, more services, more beds, an extra operating theater, etc. Before the expansion opened, the usual fight between the unions and management started over staffing. We went in really well prepared and management took it well, offering staffing we wanted. We had a final meeting with about 40 people in the room, HR, department heads and the various unions and so on, and we get to a department that I will call ABC, and the department head says that we don't need any extra staff except for nurses. I argued, you have more space and more beds and you need more cleaners, wardsmen, admin staff, etc. He fires back with, "I stake my reputation on it that we don't need any extra staff." I asked the minutes record this specifically. A meeting is set down for 4 weeks after the hospital expansion opening, and we let him have his way knowing he would not be successful. Guess whose department turned into a complete farce? Nothing terrible, just lots of little issues. At the next union meeting again, with all people previously present, I read out the list of issues department ABC has. I then read out the last minutes with him stating they did not need any extra staffing and that the department head had staked his reputation on it. I then asked the head of ABC to justify all of this, but he couldn't. I asked him, as he staked his reputation on this and the outcomes have been poor, what does that mean? He gave no answer. I looked towards the CEO and said, "You were here last time and the buck stops with you." He agreed to review the situation urgently. The union placed the hospital into formal industrial dispute at the meeting over the lack of staffing in Department ABC, and the next day the CEO sends out an email stating that after a brief conversation with the head of Department ABC, he has chosen to seek different career opportunities. And yeah guys, thanks for watching, I hope you have a great day and I will see you again tomorrow.